At 7:14 in the morning, without slowing and without turning off course, the destroyer USS Spruance simply stops moving, dead center in the Strait of Hormuz, roughly 5 miles off the northern coast of Iran, in the most dangerous stretch of water on the planet, on the second day of the American blockade of Iranian ports. The ship had left its standard patrol station at 6:47 that morning to intercept an Iranian cargo vessel trying to slip past the blockade, and now it sits motionless, engines dead, 3 compartments flooding at once. Nobody aboard the Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group, more than 200 miles away, knows yet. Nobody is coming. You are standing on the deck of the Spruance. The Iranian coastline is 5 miles to the north. The ship is taking on water, and you have just realized that whatever stopped the Spruance was not a strike against it. It was waiting. To understand what happened at 7:14, you have to understand what was sitting on the floor of the strait long before the Spruance ever arrived there. Because this was not a missile. It was not a torpedo. It was not any weapon Iran had used that morning, or on any of the 46 mornings of this war before it. It was a naval mine, specifically an influence mine, a weapon that does not detonate on contact. It rests on the seabed and waits. It measures the change in water pressure created by a large vessel passing overhead, and when that pressure change crosses a certain threshold, a threshold calibrated to a ship heavy enough to be worth destroying, the charge fires upward, not into the hull itself, but into the water directly beneath it. The explosion does not punch a hole. It generates a shockwave that travels through the water and slams into the keel from below, with a force no hull plating on Earth was ever built to absorb from that direction. The keel of the Spruance took that force at 7:14. The blast was quiet, not loud the way a crew braces to expect an explosion to sound. It was a deep, resonant thud that rolled through the steel from underneath, through the deck plating, through the bulkheads, through every surface anyone on board happened to be touching at that exact moment. You felt it before you heard it. The kind of impact that tells everyone aboard, instantly and without a single word being spoken, that something has happened to the ship itself, not to something near it. Within 90 seconds, 3 forward compartments began taking on water. The flex the shockwave forced through the keel had cracked 2 hull welds that had held without incident for 11 years of normal service. A 3rd compartment flooded through a ruptured pipe fitting in the engineering space, punched open by the same keel deformation. It was not catastrophic flooding, not the kind that sinks a ship in minutes. It was the kind that buys you time. More precisely, it buys you time to make the right calls or the wrong ones, and everything that follows depends entirely on which. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Kim is the damage control officer aboard the Spruance. The flooding assessment hit her console within seconds of the blast. 3 compartments, combined inflow of roughly 280 liters per second. The critical threshold, the point at which flooding reaches the main engine room bulkhead and starts threatening propulsion, would arrive in 14 minutes at the current rate. 14 minutes. The Spruance sat 5 miles off the Iranian coast. The Lincoln was 210 nautical miles away. The nearest Allied vessel was roughly 12 nautical miles behind them, near the southern entrance to the strait. At flank speed, that ship was 18 minutes out. By the math, help would arrive 4 minutes after the Spruance lost the ability to move under its own power. Kim got to work. Standard damage control doctrine for hull flooding is sequential compartment isolation. Seal the breach, bring emergency pumps online, assess structural integrity, call for help. Kim had the isolation system running within 90 seconds of the detonation. 2 of the 3 compartments sealed clean. The 3rd, where the fitting had failed in the engineering space, would not seal completely because the broken fitting sat in a position that physically blocked the emergency shut-off valve from closing all the way. The valve closed to 80%. Not enough. Water kept coming through the remaining gap at a reduced rate. At 80% isolation, the flow into the 3rd compartment dropped from 140 liters per second to 31. Combined inflow across all 3 spaces was now 171 liters per second. Time to critical threshold stretched from 14 minutes to 19. At 7:16, she radioed the damage report to the Combat Information Center. flooding confined to 3 compartments, third compartment isolated at 80%, 19 minutes to critical threshold, requesting emergency engineering support to finish sealing the damaged fitting. The response came back in 11 seconds. Kim, we have a second problem. The mine blast had triggered every passive sensor aboard the Spruance at once. The specific acoustic signature of an influence mine detonating beneath a ship's keel, the sound every Navy sonar technician trains to recognize and hopes never to hear for real, had rippled outward through the water from the blast point in every direction. The hull-mounted sonar on the Spruance had captured it with startling clarity, and the sonar operator, Petty Officer James Okafor, spent 2 full minutes staring at his display, finding something in the recording he could not explain and could not stop thinking about. The acoustic signature of the mine was wrong. Not unusual for a mine, wrong in the sense that it did not match anything on the Iranian military threat list. The detonator characteristics, the explosive composition, the hull resonance, none of it pointed to Iranian military ordnance. It pointed to a commercial-grade sea mine, the kind used not for combat, but to shut down access to specific shipping lanes in contested waters. Iranian forces had never used a commercial pattern mine anywhere in this conflict. Iranian forces used military pattern mines, weapons built for warfare, catalogued in every threat database, recognizable on every sonar system in the fleet. Finding a commercial mine sitting in a shipping channel of the Strait of Hormuz meant one specific thing. The thing Okafor spent 2 minutes trying to put into words. And the thing Kim understood the instant the Combat Information Center relayed it to her. This mine had not been laid to sink American warships. It had been placed here to destroy merchant traffic once a ceasefire reopened the strait. During the pause in fighting, Iran had not been mining the military transit corridor. It had been mining the commercial route, the same channel every oil tanker and cargo ship would use the moment the strait reopened to international trade. While the world watched the talks in Islamabad and hoped for peace, Iranian mine layers had been seeding the commercial shipping lane with civilian pattern mines built specifically to detonate beneath the hull of a loaded tanker. The Spruance had crossed out of the military transit corridor and into the commercial lane while intercepting that Iranian cargo vessel at 6:47, with no knowledge that the commercial lane existed as its own separate minefield. No intelligence assessment had flagged mines on the trade route because these mines were never built to look military. They had been laid during the ceasefire when every surveillance asset was watching troop movements, not commercial channel prep. The Spruance had not wandered into a trap set for it. It had wandered into a trap set for someone else, which meant the trap was still out there. Every mine that had not yet detonated was still sitting on the floor of that commercial shipping lane, arranged in a pattern nobody had charted and nobody had detected, stretching an unknown distance in an unknown direction beneath waters that 230 loaded oil tankers were expected to cross the moment the strait reopened under the peace agreement. Kim looked back at the flooding display. 17 minutes to critical threshold, 12 nautical miles to the nearest Allied ship, 5 miles to the Iranian coast. She picked up the line to combat. While that was unfolding, she kept working both problems at once. In the third compartment, the engineering team reached the broken fitting and found it had failed in a spot where a standard swap was impossible without draining the compartment first. Draining it would take 8 minutes. They did not have 8 minutes. Kim asked the team lead one question. Could they route around the fitting instead of replacing it? Not fixed, bypassed. Could they redirect the flow past the damaged section using emergency patch fittings, building a sealed channel the shutoff valve could then close completely? The team lead studied the compartment layout for 11 seconds. Then he said yes, and that it would take 6 minutes. Kim gave the order and turned back to the detonation data. Okafor had sent her the full acoustic recording of the blast. She spent 4 minutes working through it while the engineering team ran the bypass. The pressure wave propagation data was the key. A commercial mine sits on the seabed at a set depth and detonates with a pressure profile shaped by the seabed composition, the water depth, and its distance from neighboring mines in the same laying pattern. In Okafor's recording, faint secondary returns bounced off the seafloor from several distinct objects, spaced at even intervals, running northeast from the blast point toward the standard approach corridor into the commercial shipping lanes. Standard practice for commercial pattern mine laying, the kind used to seal off a channel, spaces charges between 180 and 220 meters apart. The return pattern matched a 200-meter spacing almost exactly. Kim cross-referenced the return bearings against the known geometry of the commercial shipping corridor and came up with 11 additional contact points. 11 mines laid in a straight line along the main approach to the commercial lane, stretching roughly 1 1/3 miles northeast of the Spruance's current position. At 7:23, the engineering team finished the bypass on the damaged fitting. The shutoff valve closed to 97%. Flooding in the third compartment dropped to 4 liters per second. Combined inflow across all 3 compartments fell to 45 liters per second. Time to critical threshold stretched out to 41 minutes. The Spruance was no longer sinking. Kim transmitted the mine location data. Somewhere in that strait, 230 tankers full of crews, with families waiting on them, were counting on that ceasefire holding and that channel being clean. And it makes you wonder what you would have done in Kim's chair, with a clock running and a coastline 5 miles away. Whether you trust the numbers on the screen or the 11 seconds a team lead gives himself before answering yes.